Hi guys, so it's time for chapter 12 of When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. Frau Zern packed the children's clothes. They said goodbye to their friends and their teachers at school, and they were ready to leave Switzerland for a new life in France. But it wasn't a bit like leaving Berlin, said Anna, because they were able to come back and see everyone at Gasthof Zern any time that they liked, and Herr Zern had already invited them for next summer. They were to live in a furnished flat in Paris, which Mama was busy now getting ready. What was it like? Max wanted to know. Papa thought for a moment. If you stood on the balcony, he said, you can see the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe both at the same time. These were famous Paris landmarks. But beyond this, he seemed unable to remember much about it. It was a pity, thought the children, that Papa was sometimes so vague about practical matters. But the fact that the flat had a balcony made it sound rather grand. The journey to Paris took a whole day, and they almost did not get there at all. They had no trouble in Basel, but they had to change trains because Basel was the frontier between Switzerland, France and Germany. Owing to some delay on the line, they arrived very late and only had a few minutes to catch their Paris connection. We'll have to be very quick, said Papa, as the train drew into the station. Luckily there was a porter immediately at hand. He grabbed their luggage and flung it onto his wheelbarrow. The Paris train, hurry, cried Papa, and the porter set off at a gallop, with them all running behind him. Anna had trouble keeping the porter in sight as he turned and twisted through the crowds of people, and Max and Papa were already helping him to heave the luggage aboard the other train when she caught up with them. She stood for a moment, getting her breath back. The train must be about to leave, for all along it people were leaning out of windows, saying goodbye to their friends on the platform. Immediately beside her, a young man seemed in danger of falling right out to give his girlfriend a passionate farewell embrace. Go on with you, said the girl, and gave him a push back into the train. As he straightened up, the bottom of the window came into view. There was a printed notice stuck on it. It read, Stuttgart. Papa, screamed Anna, this is the wrong train. It's going to Germany. Good God, said Papa. Get the luggage off, quick. He and Max dragged the suitcases off again as fast as they could, and they heard the whistle. Never mind, shouted Papa, and pulled Max back, even though that the suitcase was left on the train. That's our case, shouted Max. Please give us our case. And just as the carriage began to move, the young man with the girlfriend kindly pushed it onto the platform for them. It landed on Anna's feet, and they stood there, with luggage littered all around them, watching the train steam out of the station. I clearly told you the Paris train, said Papa, angrily looking round for the porter, but there was no sign of him. He had disappeared. If we'd got on that train, asked Anna, would we have been able to get off before Germany? Possibly, said Papa, if we'd realised it was the wrong train. He put his arm around her shoulders. I'm certainly very glad that you noticed it before we got on it. It took some time to find another porter, and Papa was sure that they'd missed the Paris connection, but in fact they had caught it with some time to spare. Its departure time had been back to fit in with the delay of the Swiss line. It was odd that the first porter had not known about this. As they sat in their compartment waiting for their French train to start, Max suddenly said, Papa, do you think that porter took us to the wrong train on purpose? I don't know, said Papa. It could have just been a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake, said Max. I think he was trying to earn the 1,000 marks on your head. For a moment they sat there thinking about it, and about what could have happened if they travelled to Germany, when the whistle went and the train started with a jolt. Well, said Papa, if that porter really was trying to earn 1,000 marks, he certainly made a bad bargain. I never had time to even give him a tip. And he smiled and settled back in his seat. And in a few minutes, thanks to Anna, we'll have not been in Germany but in France. And thanks to Max, we've even got our luggage. He lifted his hands in mock admiration. Psh, said Papa, what clever children I have. They arrived in Paris before dark and very tired. Anna had already sensed something different about the train after leaving Basile. There had been more French voices talking quickly, sharply, and incomprehensibly. The smell of the dining car had been very different too. But now that she was standing on the platform in Paris, she was overwhelmed. All around her there were people shouting, greeting each other, talking, laughing. Their lips moved quickly, their mobile faces keeping pace with them. They shrugged and embraced each other and waved their hands to emphasize what they were saying, and she could not understand a word. For a moment, in the dim light and the noise and the steam drifting back from the engine, she felt quite lost. But then Papa was bundling her and Max into a taxi, and they were charging through the crowded streets. There were lights everywhere, people walking along wide pavements, eating and drinking in glass-fronted cafes, reading newspapers, looking into shop windows. She had forgotten what this big city was like. The height of the buildings amazed her, and the noise. As the taxi swayed and turned in the traffic, unfamiliar cars and buses and coloured electric signs which she could not read loomed out into the darkness and disappeared again. "There's the Eiffel Tower!" cried Max, but she turned too late and missed it. Then they were driving round a huge open space with a floodlit arch in the middle. There were cars everywhere, most of them blowing their horns. "That's the Arc de Triomphe," said Papa. "We're nearly there." They turned into a quieter avenue and then off it into a little narrow street. Then the taxi driver stopped quite suddenly with a squeal of the brakes. They had arrived. Anna and Max stood in the cold outside a tall house while Papa paid the taxi driver. Then he opened the front door and pushed them into the hall, where a lady was sitting half asleep in what appeared to be a glass-fronted cage. As soon as she saw Papa, the lady leapt into life. She rushed out of what turned out to be a door in her cage and shook him by the hand, talking very quickly in French all the time. Then, still talking, she shook hands with Max and Anna, who, unable to understand, could only smile weakly in reply. "This is Madame la Concierge," said Papa. "She looks after the house." The taxi driver came in with the luggage, and Madame la Concierge helped him to push some of it through the narrow door which she held open for Max and Anna. They could hardly believe their eyes. "Papa," said Max, "you never told us there was a lift." "It's very, very grand," said Anna. This made Papa laugh. "I'd hardly call it that," he said. But Anna and Max were not convinced, even when the lift creaked and groaned horribly as it rose slowly up to the top floor. At last it stopped with a bang and a shudder, and even before they all got out, the door opposite them flew open, and there was Mamma. Anna and Max rushed to her, and all became confusion while she hugged them, and they both tried to tell her everything that had happened since they'd last seen her. And Papa came in with the suitcase and kissed Mamma, and then the concierge brought in the rest of the cases, and all at once the tiny hall was crammed with luggage and no one could move. "Come into the dining room," said Mamma. It was not much bigger, but the table was laid for supper and it looked bright and inviting. "Where can I hang my coat?" called Papa from the hall. "There's a hook behind the door," Mamma called back to him in the middle of the noisy description by Max of how they had nearly caught the wrong train. Then there was a crash as of someone falling over something. Anna heard Papa's polite voice saying, "Good evening," and the mild smell of burning, which Anna had noticed ever since their arrival, suddenly became intensified. A small glum figure appeared at the doorway. "Your fried potatoes have gone all black," it announced with obvious satisfaction. "Oh, Crete!" cried Mamma. Then she said, "This is Crete from Austria. She is in Paris to learn French and is going to help me with the housework when she isn't studying." Crete shook hands gloomingly with Anna and Max. "Can you speak quite a lot of French?" asked Max. "No," said Crete. "It's a very difficult language. Some people never manage to learn it at all." Then she turned to Mamma. "Well, I think I'll be off to bed." "But Crete," said Mamma. "I promised my mother that no matter what happened, I'd always get my proper sleep," said Crete. "I've turned off the gas under the potatoes. Good night all." and she went. "Really?" said Mama. "That girl is no use at all." "Never mind. It'll be nice to have our first meal in Paris together on our own. I'll show you your room and you can get settled in there while I fry some more potatoes." Their room was painted a rather ugly yellow, and there were yellow bedspreads on the 2 beds. A wooden wardrobe stood in the corner. There were 2 yellow curtains, 1 yellow lampshade, and 2 chairs. Nothing else. There would have been no space for any more furniture anyway, because, like the dining room, the room was quite small. "What's outside the window?" asked Max. Anna looked. It was not a street, as she had expected, but an inner courtyard with walls and windows all around it. It was like a well. A clanging sound far below told her there must be dustbins at the bottom, but it was too far down for her to see. Above there were only the irregular outlines of rooftops and sky. It was very different from Gasthof-Zern and from their house in Berlin. They unpacked their pyjamas and toothbrushes and decided which yellow bed would belong to whom, and then they explored the rest of the flat. Next to their room was Papa's room. It had a bed, a wardrobe, a chair, and a table with Papa's typewriter on it, and it overlooked the street. From Papa's room a communicating door led through to what looked like a little sitting room, but there was some of Mamma's clothes strewn about. "Do you think this is Mamma's room?" asked Anna. "It can't be. There's no bed," said Max. There was only a sofa, a little table and 2 armchairs. Then Max looked a lot closer at the sofa. "It's one of those special ones," he said. "Look," and he lifted the seat. In a cavity underneath were sheets and blankets and pillows. "Mamma can sleep on it at night, and then she can turn her room into a sitting room during the day." "Oh, that's very clever," said Anna. "It means we can use the room twice over." Certainly it was important to make the best possible use of the space in the flat, for there was very little of it. Even the balcony, which had sounded so grand when Papa talked about it, was not much more than a ledge surrounded by iron railings. Apart from the dining room, which they had already seen, there remained only the tiny room that Greet slept in, an even tinier bathroom, and a small square kitchen where they found Mamma and Papa. Mamma, flushed and excited, was stirring something in a bowl. Papa was leaning against the window. He looked bothered and disapproving, and as his children came in, they heard him say, "Surely all this trouble can't be necessary." The kitchen was full of smoke. "Of course it's necessary," said Mamma. "What are the children going to eat?" "Cheese and a glass of wine," said Papa, and the children burst into laughter, while Mamma cried, "Oh, you are hopeless." "I didn't know you could cook," said Anna. She had never seen Mamma in the kitchen before. "It'll be ready in 5 minutes," cried Mamma, stirring excitedly. "Oh, my potatoes!" They were going to burn again, but she caught them just in time. "I'm making fried potatoes and scrambled eggs. I thought you'd like that." "Lovely," said Max. "Now, where's the dish? And some salt." "Oh," cried Mamma, I've got another lot of potatoes to do." She looked appealingly at Papa. "Dearest, can you please pass me the colander?" Which is a colander?" said Papa. By the time the meal was ready and on the table, it was nearly an hour later, and Anna felt so tired that she could no longer have cared whether she ate anything or not. But she did not like to say that to Mamma, as she had gone to so much trouble. She and Max ate their supper quickly and sleepily, and then fell into bed. Through the thin walls of the flat they could hear a murmur of voices and the clattering of dishes. Mamma and Papa must be cleaning the table. "You know, it's funny," said Anna, just before she went to sleep. "I remember when we lived in Berlin, and Heimke used to make us fried potatoes and scrambled egg.